Alright, everyone, welcome back to
Unknown,
Unsolved
unseen.
Triple U.
Woo! Episode 20.
Yep.
We're a fifth of the way to 100.
Gosh, every week you do good math.
So, today on our episode, there's the three of us, me,
Sage.
Sage. Yeah, me, as in Frank, Sage, and,
The
her,
puppy.
her parents' dog, Marley. She loves to get pets in the middle of the episode. And isn't that right, Marley? So I have really no announcements today except for the same stuff that we talked about last week is still happening. Do you have any announcements, Sage?
Nope.
All right, then I think if you're ready, we can get right into this madness. Well, is this madness or no?
I'll let you decide. I don't really know how to describe what madness would be.
Okay.
Alright, so what do you get when you have professors of geology, chemistry, and physics, and a petroleum engineer all spotting the same phenomena on approximately 14 different occasions?
Swamp gas.
No.
What do you get?
Well, the Lubbock Lights, of course.
I had no idea.
So today's story is going to take us to Lubbock, Texas, home of Texas Tech University, or as it used to be called, Texas Technological College.
Technological just does not have that ring to it.
I know, I like that they changed it to Texas Tech.
Also, I had no idea Lubbock was in Texas. I heard the name before, knew nothing about it. I was just going to assume it was somewhere in the Northeast, maybe.
No, it's like, if you're looking at a map of Texas, you know how, like, there's that top part that juts up?
Yeah.
It's like a third of the way down the state from on that side.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sorry, I was like, I'm really bad at geography, so I was trying to figure out how to describe that to you.
It's in northern Texas. Is that what you're trying to say?
Northwestern,
Northwestern Texas?
but like not more central than the whole way to the top.
Okay.
But more central than the whole way to the top.
Is it in the Yeehaw part of Texas?
I think all of Texas is Yeehaw.
That's what I want to know. So therefore, it is in Yeehaw territory.
Sure.
I don't think we have any Texas listeners yet.
Well, maybe this will bring them. So we're gonna go the whole way back to the 1950s. So on the evening of August 25th, 1951, a group of professors from the college, the Texas Technological College, were gathered at the home of geology professor Dr. W.I. Robinson, casually drinking tea and discussing micrometeorites.
Wow, that
Is so
what
specific.
are these people again?
These are professors.
That definitely sounds like a professor thing to do. Drinking tea and discussing micrometeorites.
Yeah.
One evening.
Yeah.
And they're just there, pinkies up. Indubitably, I think that micrometeorite is quite small. Undoubtedly.
Yeah. And then the other professors, Jesus.
Professionals?
I'm trying to say professionals or professors.
Excuse me, professional. Can you please explain that again?
The other professors were...
I'm sorry, that's just... that's a funny one.
Yeah. The other professors were chemical engineering professor Dr. A.G. Oberg, physics professor Dr. George, didn't have any more than just his first name, I guess.
Dr. George.
And Dr. W.L. Ducker, who was head of the petroleum engineering department at the college. Around 9:20 p.m. on this typical quiet summer night, the professors would spot a very peculiar set of lights moving through the sky. They would later describe to the Lubbock Avalanche Journal that they spotted a U-shaped formation of roughly 15 to 30 bluish-green lights passing over them.
Wait, you said a U-shaped formation?
Yep.
So U, not V.
Later is a V. The professor said it's a U.
Oh, okay. Because these are normally reported in a V, so that's why I was a bit confused. Because, like, the Phoenix Lights, that's a V shape, and many others are typically a V.
Yeah, so they say that it's a U. Which comes into play later when we're talking about whether or not theories of this are actually plausible. So they say it's a U-shaped formation. The lights were described as fast-moving and traveling from northeast to southwest in just a matter of seconds. The professors also described the lights as being bright as stars, but larger in size and silent. The professors quickly ruled out that these lights were any type of meteors, quite literally, because that's their expertise and that's what they were
Well, a
discussing.
meteor would typically also have a trail behind it too. So if
And it
these are
wouldn't
just
make like a distinct formation either.
yeah,
Also, it would probably be orange, right? From like fire, not blue or
no,
green.
it not necessarily.
Oh, okay. I don't know much about
It depends on where you see
meteors.
meteorite, and I'm not sure all the details, but I don't think it typically shows that color.
Oh. So they were discussing what they saw, and then the lights actually appeared overhead again. However, this set was slightly different in that it was more of a haphazard formation rather than a distinct U shape. But they were moving in the same direction as the first set.
So it was possibly a second set of lights.
Yeah,
Now, once again, what year is this?
this is 51.
So I'm assuming very unlikely that any picture was taken.
Actually, there is pictures taken, which I will
Oh,
talk about later.
okay. I did not expect that because
It's
that's
a
what.
if once I show you, like, if you look up the picture of the Lubbock Lights, once I get to that point, it is so distinct. Like, you will I would be surprised if you have never seen this photograph
Okay,
before.
I'll wait for you to get to that point,
Okay.
and then I'll look it up. But thank you for that information because
Yep.
that's one of the first things I was thinking about.
Yep. So after reporting their sightings to the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, their story would be corroborated by others across the town and even by others who were just as credible in their reporting. Three women in Lubbock reported that they had observed, quote, peculiar flashing lights in the sky on the same night as the professor's sightings, as well as Carl Heminger, who was a professor of German at Texas Technological College, also reported seeing the lights at the same night. Another professor, J. Russell Heitman, reported seeing the lights several days earlier. So the first official, like, known sight, like the first official known sighting of the lights that was like spoken about and stuff was these four professors, but turns out there were other people that had seen similar lights earlier in the month of August, but just never said anything.
So not on the same night, same month though.
Same month, yeah. So a
Uh,
lot of around the same night, but also some that were earlier in the month.
Interesting.
Hmm.
So this is in August of 1951.
Yep.
So in that time span.
Hmm.
Okay.
In Albuquerque, New Mexico, so we're in New Mexico now, which is about 350 miles away from Lubbock, an employee of the Atomic Energy Commission's top secret Sandia Corporation. This is a man who has a high level Q security clearance, okay? Very credible witness, had been sitting outside his home with his wife. It's reported that they were looking up into the night sky, just enjoying, your typical peaceful evening in New Mexico, and commenting on how beautiful the stars in the sky were, when they were both startled at the sight of a huge airplane flying swiftly and silently over their home.
Wait, a plane though.
They describe it as looking like a plane, but on the edge of the wings there were 6 to 8 pairs of soft, glowing, bluish lights.
Hmm. That's interesting. What time of day was this?
This is in the evening. This is in the night sky.
Okay, so it's like dark out.
Hmm. I think that they probably assumed it was an airplane because they saw something go over them, but to them, it was the interesting part is that it was silent.
Hmm.
Like airplanes are not silent if they're
Yeah.
going over you.
Especially then, because those are more propeller-based craft that you hear the
Yeah,
boom, 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 boom.
yeah, that was a very authentic propeller. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what? I should get a job as a propeller noise guy and go boom, 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 boom,
Yeah, we're gonna take that and we're gonna put that on top of the.
boom.
But I'm just kidding. I don't know how to do that, so otherwise I would. Somebody else do that, please. Um, an hour or so after this sighting in New Mexico, according to a retired rancher from Lubbock, his wife had seen something very freaky in the night sky while outdoors taking sheets off the clothesline. All of a sudden, his wife had rushed into the home, quote, as white as the sheets she was carrying. She had allegedly witnessed a large object gliding swiftly and silently over the house, and she described it as an airplane without a body. And on the back edge of the wing were pairs of glowing bluish lights.
Wait. Okay. Okay. I when you said airplane without the body, I for some reason pictured an airplane without the wings.
That
And then
is.
my mind got so lost, and then you just started describing the wings. I'm like, my mind. I don't know if you saw me over here for a moment, just staring into the distance. I, I thought of the opposite
I
when
don't
you said
really
that.
know how what an airplane without its wings or with an airplane without the body looks like.
I guess just a big wing, or like I don't know, like almost a V shaped thing.
Yeah, that's kind of yeah. I guess a V would make sense
So,
if the lights are always described in
so
like the
hold
V
up.
or U.
Who saw this again?
So this is the a rancher from Lubbock,
Okay, so we're
but it's
back in Lubbock,
almost an identical description to the individual from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
except their plane may have had a body.
Yeah, we don't know,
Okay.
but nearly identical description, which I will talk a little bit about that, about why that's such a big deal later.
Yeah, because whenever you first described that, and for some reason my mind went to plane without the wings, because that would match a cigar-shaped UFO, which is something reported. But now we're going into possibly triangle-shaped to V-shaped UFOs,
Yeah,
which all of these are various different UFO descriptions. There's the
yeah,
Tic Tac egg-looking ones, the V shapes, the triangle shapes, the cigar shapes, the saucer shapes. There's a little bit of everything. The
yeah,
bells.
yeah. A few weeks after these sightings, in a separate incident, a professor named Grayson Mead reported a similar experience, describing the lights as about the size of a dinner plate. So the lights themselves on whatever like was flying, they looked like the size of a dinner plate.
Ah,
I don't know why.
that's
That was the description.
quite small.
Yeah. And a greenish blue, slightly fluorescent in color. He added that they were smaller than the full moon on the horizon, and there were about a dozen to 15 of these lights, but they were absolutely circular, and it gave all of us an extremely eerie feeling. So the other people, he was with other people, but I didn't think it was
And so this
necessary.
is a week after the
A few
professors.
weeks, yeah. Like
Okay,
this, we're talking early September.
the professionals.
Yes,
What'd you call them? Professionals.
professionals.
Professionals. That's
Yeah.
it. So a week after the professional.
These sightings, along with some other sightings in the surrounding area, such as a 40-foot long silver pear-shaped craft seen on Highway 70, which was 50 miles northeast of Lubbock, um, showcase that something's clearly happening in Lubbock, Texas, and it's more than just a single isolated incident. So I still have other things to describe about what was seen, but in general, like there's many different sightings in this area.
Pear shaped.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
That's a new one. I have not heard pear shaped.
yeah.
I've heard like egg shaped, circular, all this crap, but pear shaped. So what? A thick back and a not a thick front.
I don't
I
know.
wonder if it had the stem
Yeah,
and
maybe.
the leaves.
Who knows?
But that's just a new one. I had not heard pear shaped before. That's what the, my goodness. You're trying to throw my UFO knowledge upside down. Marley, you hear that? See, you're trying to hurt my UFO knowledge.
So, perhaps the most famous sighting of the Lubbock Lights belongs to that of Carl Hart Jr., who was a college freshman at Texas Technological College. It was reported in some sources that he'd been waiting to see if the lights would reappear, and at some point they did. Like, he was actively searching out these lights. And on August 30th, 1951, so 5 days after the initial sighting by the professors, Hart Jr. was hanging out in his bedroom, sitting on his bed, which he had pushed up against the window, and he was staring out into the night sky.
Wow, that sounds like really fun to do when you're in college. Not go to parties or anything. You just put your bed by the window and just stare.
Well, arguably, this made him pretty famous, so he witnessed the lights overhead and quickly grabbed his 35mm Kodak camera and ventured out into his parents' backyard to attempt to capture the lights on film. After setting the lens and shutter at f3.5 and 1/10 of a second, Hart Jr. waited for the lights to return, and they did, twice actually, though they were at a higher altitude the second time. He is quoted as saying, "I grabbed my camera and set the exposure where I wanted it, went back outside and waited, and two more lights came over." Using his camera and these settings, he was able to capture 5 photographs of the mysterious lights.
This is where I look it up now.
Yeah. It appears that the second time they passed, he was able to get 2 photos, and the third formation that came a few minutes later, he was able to get another 3 photos. These photos are arguably some of the most well-known UFO sighting photos that exist.
All right.
I've seen this one in so many places.
So first off, I see there's a document. Right.
Yeah, there's a documentary and there's others, but I put a little pop culture moment
Documentary.
at the
There's
end.
a book. There, because that's what I'm seeing. I see. I think I see the photos. I show you. Also, I see. I guess Lubbock has a Christmas lights at the uh during Christmas time. It's called the Lubbock Light Park. So I'm getting pictures of that too. But if I show you, is this the picture that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Wow, that is a incredible picture. Are
Have
you
you
the
ever seen that before?
No. Oh, I might have and just not realized it. I'm so used to like when I see lights like this, I'm more used to the Phoenix lights, but I could have just not known about these. These are incredible pictures.
Yeah, I would completely agree, and so did all of the people who investigated this phenomenon.
Now, I'll have to use this for our post tomorrow. So people see this
Yeah.
because it just. I'm just gonna look it up. I'm gonna take a quick look at compared to the Phoenix lights. Very similar-ish, and like you
Well,
can see the similarities.
Phoenix, Arizona, right?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, that's not really that far from each other.
no, but the Phoenix lights are way later on. 'Cause, well, I think 90s or 80s,
Mm.
because these are also color photos for this, but like
Oh, right.
similar.
So Hart Jr. would later take those photos to be developed.
Also, I was just gonna say, if there's a noise in the last couple minutes, I was petting the dog while I was talking, so hopefully that didn't come through.
That's okay. So Hart would later take the photos to be developed and then sell them to Jay Harris, who was the newspaper, the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, that the professors talked to, editor, for only $10.
I mean, that's a lot more back then.
I think it's like 120 today.
I have no idea. Maybe we
Something
should.
like that.
Maybe we should have
Well, I
one of those
looked that up.
calculators ready.
I looked it up, but I get confused on how to calculate that kind of stuff. So who knows if I'm right?
But like, I forgot that was a thing you do back then. I think some people still do now. You get a story or picture of something, and then you can sell it.
Oh yeah, people do that all the time now.
Oh wow! Also, I'm looking at this thing of the Lubbock Lights, and it showed me the map of where it happened. And yeah, you are you're very not you're not bad on describing where it happened.
Thank you. So Jay Harris reportedly told Jay Harris, that's the editor, reportedly told Hart Jr. that the photographs would be published in the newspaper, but that he would, quote, run him out of town if the photos were found out to be fake. So,
Oh,
so
that's a little
because of this
pressure.
possibility, it's a lot of pressure. Because of this possibility, the newspaper was originally hesitant to publish the photos, but they did ultimately decide to do so. And then those photos would then go on to like catch the attention of papers nationwide, and they even ended up in Life magazine.
I feel like this has to be somewhere then in this book here, but I probably did. There's no index in it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what that book is, but
It's the UFO Experience by J. Allen Hynek.
oh, okay. So while these photos, if real, were an incredible feat of photography, they did end up convincing the public that the Lubbock Lights were a single isolated incident. Whereas that's why I told you earlier, like I wanted everybody to understand that it's not a single isolated incident, because when you think of Lubbock Lights, that photograph is what almost everybody thinks of. But
Not
that's not
everything
the
else.
only time that these lights were seen. They
Yeah,
were seen multiple times.
you gotta connect the dots.
Yeah.
Specifically, the dots that are in the sky.
Yeah. So there was a pretty significant number of sightings across this area during the fall of 1951, and to this day, like Lubbock is for some reason just like well known for how many times like random things in the sky are seen. There's like a whole webpage on it that I'll link below, but it's called like why do we have, I don't remember, I'll have to go back and look, but it was like why do we have so many sightings in this area or something like that. I don't know why. But the following day from the photos, August 31st, we had another sighting. So an Air Force wife and her daughter claimed to have seen a UFO while driving northwest from Matador, Texas, back to Lubbock. They reported They reported that they had left their home in Matador, Texas, which is 70 miles northeast of Lubbock, at about 12:30 p.m. on August 31st. They were driving along in their car when they suddenly noticed a pear-shaped object.
Back with the
Yeah,
pears.
about 150 yards ahead of them. It was just off the side of the road, about 120 feet in the air, and was slowly driving to the east, less than the speed required to take off in a Cub airplane. I'm assuming that was a well-known airplane. I'm not sure what a Cub airplane is.
Well, she's an Air Force wife, so she might have some knowledge.
Yeah. The object, which they estimated to be the size of a B-29 fuselage, was still drifting along slowly. There was no sign of any exhaust blast, and they heard no noise, but they did see a, quote, porthole in the side of the object. In a few seconds, the object began to pick up speed and rapidly climb out of sight.
So this is during the day.
Yes, this is one of the only sightings that's during the
Yeah,
day.
because this is very different than
Yep.
everything else we've gone over before.
Yeah. As it climbed, it seemed to have a tight spiraling motion. So pear-shaped, tight spiraling motion is
So-
climbing straight up.
Yeah, we're going to cut out that. Yeah. Well, in case you guys are wondering, we don't have to cut it out. I was doing that motion with my hands to
Yeah.
try and show it, but y'all can't see that.
No. But the ladies ended up actually being investigated by authorities, and this investigation showed that they were solid citizens. Like the daughter and her mom were solid citizens, with absolutely no talents, no reasons, no talents or reasons for fabricating such a story.
No talent.
Yeah.
Just let me let's see. Were you making a story up? Oh, you have no talents, therefore you must be reliable.
Yeah.
God, that's
Yeah.
just a slap in the face detail. You got no talent, so I respect you.
So the one woman, her husband, like you said, pointed out, was an Air Force officer who had been stationed in Korea, and she'd been living near air bases for several years during the length of his career. So the like she would have an idea of aircraft and like what aircraft looked like. That's why she could describe it as looking like the fuselage of a B-29 or whatever, things that they estimated it to be. The ladies had said the object was drifting to the east, like I said, which indicated that it was moving with the wind. But further investigation, it was found it was actually moving into the wind. And the investigators that looked into them and looked into their story weren't able to come up with the slightest indication of an answer on whether or not the ladies were telling the truth. But it was interesting enough to the investigators that it's included in a lot of the sightings of Lubbock Lights. Very different. That's where that pear shape comes in. But again, lots of sightings in this area, so they just kind of put them together. Now, the craziest part, so if you're at all familiar with aliens and investigations into extraterrestrial life on Earth, then you're probably familiar with an Air Force investigation program named Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book is the Air Force's longest running program dedicated to investigating UFOs or, unidentified flying objects. And it ran from 1952 to 1969. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I do believe we plan to do an episode on this in the future.
Yeah, this thing is a whole its own topic.
Yeah, it's a massive thing. But the basics are that Project Blue Book was a successor of two similar programs, the first being Project Sign, and the second is Project Grudge. So essentially, Project Blue Book as a whole is considered to be a collection of these three programs together. So while Project Blue Book technically was 1952 and these sightings were 1951, it is still under the collection of Project Blue Book. I don't know if that makes sense.
So I'm just going to say one thing. If you guys want to get a good summary of Project Blue Book, I would highly recommend reading The UFO Experience by J. Allen Hynek. He was one of the lead investigators on it, and he did a really good book on it. I think, when we're honest, the government did a disservice to Project Blue Book in the end. Because you want to hear one of the end results of it? In the Condon Report, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. The Condon Committee, which released the Condon Report, reported that none of these could be aliens. Because there was, I think, 169 events in all of Project Blue Book that could not be explained. So you know what their explanation is?
I got a different number than that.
Oh, I don't know. I just took a guess. That's what I thought it was. What was it?
I have 701.
Okay, I thought it was less
of
than.
the 12,618 sightings.
So, but you know what the condom report said?
But
It, under the assumption that UFOs and aliens aren't real, all of these are just unknown, what's called, like, unknown weather events that have never happened before and nobody's ever recorded. Each of those 700 is that, and not an alien. So they went in with the inherent bias that aliens aren't possible. So what are these last ones? Well, they can't be aliens, so it has to be a specific phenomenon that no one has ever seen
mm,
before. 700 times.
yeah,
Every single one of them. And that's one thing in this book. Hynek, who worked very hard on this, like he went in as a skeptic. He grilled that conclusion because that's a ludicrous conclusion. You're going with an inherent bias, and just basically BSing the rest of it and reporting that. And the government's like, well, all right, you did the job, and aliens are not real. All these sightings, bunk. But you still got people like us questioning them.
yeah. I think, I mean, at this point, it doesn't surprise me that the government would do something like that because I guarantee you that they don't want this kind of information getting out.
Yeah. Oh, hysteria. Well, no, they don't want people going
Yeah.
crazy over this. But like, sorry, that's just one. I just wanted to bring that up because
No, it's interesting. I had no idea.
I feel very strongly about Blue Book solely because that's how it ended. Because like later on, as the project went more and more, the military started treating it as like this is a wacko thing. It started sabotaging it basically,
Hmm.
and I feel bad for the people who actually put like serious effort into it, like Hynek.
Yeah. Which one of us is doing?
Blue Book? I don't even know if it's on the list yet, but either of us could. I might have to be the one to do it, but like if you want to do it, you have to read this book. It's a good book.
I don't remember, but I feel like I did see it on there. But I'm not actually sure. But yeah, I did not know that was the case. I did read a little bit about the Condon report, but I didn't obviously want to um come into it like into that much information in our episode.
Yeah,
So I don't think it's on there.
yeah, I think it's eventually going to be on here, but we didn't put it on yet.
Well, we should definitely do an episode on it because it's very interesting, and obviously Frank's got a lot of feelings, and I would definitely like to hear more about them. So I'm gonna tell you to do that episode.
All right, that's one is going to be one I'll have to plan later because that
Reading
one
a
is
large book. No thanks.
it's this type of one that it's going to take me a while to read through it and get that episode done. It's like Roswell. It seems simple at first, but Blue Book is insanely complex with everything on it.
So Project Blue Book began accepting reports of UFO sightings from the public as well as the military and government in March of 1952. Roughly 6 months or so after the first sighting of the Lubbock Lights. That's why I'm saying, it's a part of Project Grudge, which was in that interim between the first part of Project Blue Book, which is Project Sign, and then Project Grudge, then Project Blue Book, all together collectively called Project Blue Book. Very confusing. But anyway, so Blue Book, the actual Project Blue Book, the third program, started accepting them in 1952. So technically Lubbock Lights is a part of like Project Grudge, but again, collective Project Blue Book, so that's why I'm putting it under there. So Project Blue Book was headquartered at the Wright Air Force Base, which is now the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, in Dayton, Ohio. Which is another time we've talked about that area.
Yeah, these you'll notice that when you talk about alien things from like the 40s to like the 80s, even up to now, certain places come up a lot.
Yeah. So from 1947, when Project Sign began, to 1969, when Project Blue Book ended, there were 12,618 sightings of unidentified flying objects recorded. And of these, 701 remain labeled, quote, unidentified when the program concluded. One of these unidentified or unexplained sightings is the Lubbock Lights. So the professors who originally spotted the lights, as well as Hart Jr., who took those pictures, were repeatedly interrogated by the government as part of Project Grudge, which was again the running program at the time of the sightings that would later culminate into Project Blue Book. The Photo Reconnaissance Laboratory at the Air Force Base, where Project Blue Book was headquartered in Ohio, analyzed the Hart Jr. photos in like very serious detail. The supervisor of Project Blue Book, Edward J. Ruppelt, wrote that, quote, there had originally been 5 negatives, but when asked to borrow them, Hart could only produce 4. The negatives were badly scratched and dirty because so many people had handled them, so it was difficult to tell the actual photographic images from dust spots and scratches. The first thing that the lab did was to look at each spot on the negatives to see if it was an actual photographic image. They found that the photo showed an inverted V formation of lights. In each photo, the individual image of the light was badly blurred due to motion of the camera, but by careful scrutiny of each blurred image, they were able to determine that the original lights that Hart had photographed were circular, near pinpoint sources of light, like a bright star or a distant light bulb. Next, they made enlargements from those negatives and carefully plotted the position of each light in the formation. In each photograph, the individual lights in the formation shifted position according to a definite pattern. One additional factor that was brought out in the report was that although the photos were taken on a clear night, there's no images of stars that can be found in the background. This proved one thing: the lights, which were overexposed in the photograph, were a great deal brighter than the stars. Or the lights affected the film more than the light from the stars surrounding them. So if you recall from the professor's reports, this corroborates that understanding of their story that the lights were brighter than stars. However, I did read that according to Ruppelt, the professors didn't actually think that they were brighter than the stars, but they were rather softer and glowing. So this was a very confusing um contrast for me. So I tried to dig a little bit more into that. Um so why there was such a confusing mixed matching of reports. Again, we've talked
Well,
extensively on this podcast about witness testimony.
I was about to say that
Um
eyewitness testimony is
yeah,
can be easily scrutinized.
and the passing on of information, things change. Like the telephone game. But he did actually look into this a little bit, like why it could be likely that there was a different report from the professors and Hart Jr.'s photograph. So he returned to this is Ruppelt. He returned to the photo reconnaissance laboratory and asked them if there was any possible situation that could cause the lights to be a bright source um in the photograph, but not as bright to the naked eye. So the analyst actually said, yeah, so an intensely bright light source which had a color far over in the red end of the light spectrum, bordering on infrared, could do that. So the eye, as like if you know anything about light, like we learn a lot about this in chemistry in college, like refracting light, things like that, and what the human eye is able to see visibly, so our visible light spectrum. We can't see infrared light,
Nope.
right? So if it's as very far to the end bordering on infrared, like our eye is not sensitive to such light, so it would appear dim to us, yet it would be bright to the film because the film can detect more of that light in closer to the infrared spectrum. Does that, like, to me that made sense because I've studied light in school, but I don't know if that
Kind of.
does that did I explain that in a way that is understandable?
Yeah.
Okay.
And sorry, I am paying attention. I was just checking the book to see if what's it called? Heineck cited the Lubbock Lights in this book because I found his appendix where to
Oh.
talk about everything, which is because there's some interesting things in here because he has a whole appendix here about sightings, like case file, date, time, location, number of observers, duration, and then SMP, which I forget what those mean, but like it's very well organized in here.
Hmm.
This would be an encounter of the first kind, if I'm not mistaken. I forget. Second kind is like their typical physical evidence. So this would not fit into that. So let's see, because this is 1951, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see none 1951 from Texas. I do see 2 Texas ones of the close kind from November 2nd, 1957, to September 3rd, 1965. Way outside of our current timeline, current time period we're looking at.
Did
And
he only work on Project Blue Book, the third program?
I
Or
think
did
he,
he work in Grudge and
I think he was taken
Superfan?
off for Grudge.
So this was during Project Grudge.
Right, or he might have been. I forget. Because what time period was Grudge?
Grudge was from roughly like September of 51 to March of 52 when Project Blue Book was released. I think. I just
I'm
know that it was about 6 months long.
Yeah, he might not have been part of Grudge actually,
So I'm wondering if that's why it's not in that book.
because I'm seeing if because because he's talking about Blue Book case files. He might have looked into this one, but it wasn't included in Blue Book. And also, you know what's interesting? There's in here he labels 5 encounters of the third kind, which would not be um from what's it called?
Earth?
No, encounters of the third kind is when you actually see the alien.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm wondering if that's where like that confusion around the name Project Blue Book comes, because Project Blue Book is technically the third program from the Air Force from 52 to 67, I think, when it ended, 69 when it ended. But the first program, and which is Project Sign, and the second program, which is Project Grudge, are typically like included as a collection in Project Blue Book.
Yeah,
It's
because
just technically before the real Project Blue Book
it's all a
started.
continuation
Yeah.
of one another, and
Yeah.
Hynek, I believe, was only tapped for Blue
Actual
Book.
Project Blue Book?
Yeah, I'm just going to take a look here, just because we keep talking about it. I do want to see which one he was in. So Hynek was let's see. Um, sorry, I'm. So he was. Oh no, he was a scientific advisor to UFO studies taken by the U.S. Air Force under three projects: Project Sign, Grudge, and Blue Book.
Okay, so maybe he just didn't write it down there.
Yeah, and he continued researching after because I think
Well, I'm
it's
wondering if maybe he was doing like different sightings at the time. Like if the one that he is in, like that he writes about in there, if those are ones that he actively had a part in, he just didn't have a part in this one.
I think he reviewed every single one. I do think
I
those
don't know.
might be just. I mean, look, he has so many in this
Yeah,
book, and he
yeah,
talks about more than others. He talks about like the Hopkinsville Goblins, the Coro UFO incident, which that one's a crazy one.
yeah.
But it's interesting this stuff because he from working on this, I believe, became a believer.
Huh.
From being a research on it, he joined it as a skeptic to join the government, like trying to dispute it. But then by the end, he became a believer on this stuff and continued his research after, including his son who carried it on.
That's really cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, honestly, I know these are not your type of books, but this is a really good
Maybe I'll
book.
try. Maybe I'll try it in the spirit of the podcast.
Just just take slow and steady on it. You
Yeah.
don't have to read it all at once, but it is an interesting. It's a very wordy book. Almost no dialogue, so some pages are longer than others. Whenever a paragraph is almost the entire page, it does
Oh
take a bit
man.
longer to read.
Yeah. So anyway, back to these lights. Thank you for that tangent. That was really interesting. So Ruppelt asked the people, like the scientists that were at the photo reconnaissance laboratory, what kind of light source would cause something to be dim to the eye, but bright on film. One of the things they said was that if you wanted to speculate, it could be something that had extremely high temperatures. That was like an explanation, but ultimately Ruppelt writes in his book, which I'll get into in a little bit, but this was as far as they would go, they being the scientists. We have nothing in this world that flies, that appears dim to the eye, yet will show bright on film, according to those scientists at the
So it
photo
must be an
laboratory.
unknown weather phenomenon. Ain't that right?
So after an
Condon report. What a fucking joke.
So after an extensive analysis and investigation of the photos, he also writes, or he released a written statement to the press. So this is the head of Project Blue Book, released a written statement to the press that the heart photos were never proven to be a hoax, but neither were they proven to be genuine.
See, that's what they do. Is
Yes.
like, I get saying that, but what happens is that wasn't that something Hynek goes off on the book. It's like you talk about things where it's like you said we cannot prove this is fake, but we also can't prove it's real, and then they
Yeah.
focus on that. But like you got to have some, I don't think they try too hard to disprove. They have an inherent bias to disprove it. I know that's something you're supposed to have, but you shouldn't have it to an extent where you are unwilling to accept opposing viewpoint, because that was a problem with this. Is some people, your goal should be to debunk and get a good explanation. Your to get to that goal, you shouldn't reject any opposing viewpoint, and that's what some people
Yeah.
did.
It's just so wishy-washy.
Yep.
Like, but ultimately, though, because of that statement, that still makes the Lubbock Lights unsolved. Like, to
Yeah. Oh
say
yeah.
that is why, like, I don't know. Um, another little tidbit too. The Texas Technological College professors that originally saw it on August 25th, claimed the photos did not represent what they had observed because their objects had flown in a U rather than a V formation. There was no way to explain this disagreement in the arrangement of lights, and of course, it wasn't impossible that the night that Hart saw the lights, that they were flying in a V formation, right? It was a couple
Yeah.
days later, could be a V. Um, the first time the professor saw them, they were flying in a semicircle U. This just means that the orientations would have had to have changed because everything else is the same about
Hmm.
their descriptions. It's just the shape that's different.
And what is it that other sources? Well, we had pear shapes. Did we have other V shapes too?
Like some of the ones that described where it looked like I'm thinking of the one that said it looked like a plane without
Yeah,
the body, like the way that the
that would
wings
be a
would shape would
V.
be a V.
Yeah, and
So
also if you
that matched more to the photos than it did to the professor's
and
understanding.
if you look at the pictures, so I'm going to pull those up again. It's not a what's it called? A like a sharp V. It's a very wide V, which is a plain wing without body.
Yeah.
That's a very accurate description of that once I look at it. So
Yeah.
I see where that person is coming from for that description. Also, just an interjection. How much more do you have on this?
4 more pages?
Okay,
Or
good,
three and a
good,
half more
good.
pages?
Because we're at 44 minutes, probably taking up 2 minutes from editing so far.
Okay. One other sighting, on August 25th. So this one was not as discussed as much, but I think this is important, which is the same night as the professor sighting. There was a guard at the Sandia base in New Mexico that saw what they described as a flying wing 1.5 times the wingspan of a B-36. A wing. Remember that shape. It's a wing. This
So,
object was estimated to be moving at 300 to 400 miles per mile at an altitude of less than 1,000 feet and was silent. At its trailing edges, 6 to 8 pairs of glowing lights could be seen. No planes were in the area at the time, so this just added to the mystery of Lubbock Lights. And also, this is in the Sandia base in New Mexico. That is very close to the location that other sighting from Albuquerque, New Mexico, of the person who worked at the Sandia Corporation saw, and very similar descriptions. So same night, multiple times we're seeing very similar reportings traveling from.
which night again is this?
This is August 25th from
August 25th.
Lubbock
So,
across to New Mexico.
and the 31st is the picture.
Yes,
Okay, so I'm trying to get the
I know
time.
the dates are a little confusing. I tried to put them in a way
And
that made the most sense with the
where's
story, not the
what's
most
the
sense with
date
the
with
light.
the professors?
25th of
Okay,
August.
so they're also 25th, so we're seeing V and U shape on the 25th.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I
So
just want to make sure
yeah,
putting puzzle pieces together.
yeah. So the professors are the 25th, as well as the sightings from the Sandia base. The photographs are August 30th. The two women who saw it during the day are August 31st.
Okay.
But there
And
were other sightings that just weren't as important
yeah, no, I get it.
throughout the
That's
weeks.
I have that too, and the things I talk about.
Yeah.
So then the day one obviously does not have the lights, but they just see a pear-shaped craft.
Yeah. So what could these lights be? Well, there's some interesting theories offered, but again, ultimately no definitive conclusion has ever been made. The one of them that Rupert talks a lot in his book, which I'll tell you in a second, but he writes that he traveled back to Lubbock and interviewed the professors. He interviewed the guy who took the photos, Carl Hart Jr., and others who claimed to witness the lights. One of these individuals was an older La Mesa man who claimed to have seen the lights alongside his wife. So La Mesa is, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but all I know is that he lived in the Lubbock area. I don't know if that's Native American or not, like indigenous. or if that's a location. I should have figured that out, so that's my bad. But anyway, he claimed to have seen the lights alongside his wife, and during his interview, the man reportedly went on a tangent about, quote, his background as a native Texan with range wars, Indians, and stagecoaches under his belt. Ruppelt would write in his book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects, Chapter 8, The Lubbock Lights Unabridged, that what this gentleman, by talking about his background, was trying to point out that was despite the range wars, the Indians, and the stagecoaches, he'd been scared, and that his wife had been scared too. So this man had seen a lot of things in his life, but these lights still scared him. That adds some credence to his story. The old La Mesa man had suggested the lights, though, were actually plover birds, stating the lights had emitted a sound, like the word plover, I guess, and that he'd immediately identified it as a plover, which is a water bird about the size of a quail.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. First off, plover birds, cute as hell.
Oh, they are cute.
They're so cute.
Um,
But also, I didn't know plover birds are bioluminescent like that.
well, there's an explanation. So he would go on to interview a local game warden, that's Ruppelt, who grew up in the area and gave him the lowdown on plover birds, which allow this theory, allow for Ruppelt to put some credence on this theory. So the city of Lubbock reportedly installed new vapor streetlights in the summer of 1951, and the oily white breast of a plover could easily reflect that light. However, plovers didn't usually travel in more than pairs, or like 3 at most, and the game warden had never seen or heard of them traveling in a flock of 15 to 30. Of course, that wasn't impossible. Yeah, so he did say that for some unknown reason, there'd been more than the usual number of plovers in the area that fall, though it is essential to note that the species migration through this region does coincide with the August to September timeline historically. So it is, that is the most, that's plausible because their migration pattern is during this exact time. It's just unusual that they would be traveling in in giant flocks than by the pair or by 3.
Also, they're not nocturnal birds.
I did not. Well, is there any bird that's nocturnal?
Yeah, owls.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking
not
birds like this.
No, not really. I sorry to interject or anything. I had to look it up because I didn't know if you would look this part up of it. Plovers may feed at night during full moons. Besides that, because they are very visual-based predators,
I did not read whether that was a full moon.
They're typically feeding inactive during the day. So if you're feeding inactive during the day, you have to sleep part of the day. So that's going to be the night that you'll do it. Yeah. So a plover, they don't, as you said, they don't fly in flocks like this, which is a good explanation. And also, they're not nocturnal animals. To be over a couple of days, also these fast feeds.
Yeah.
Only one guy reports sounds, though, right?
No. I think there were other ones. Yeah. Maybe, okay. I don't know. Let me read what I have, and then I'll tell you, because I can't quite remember if someone else.
I don't like this. I don't like this explanation at all.
So this theory was kind of corroborated by a local witness named T.E. Snyder, who was a local farmer that reported witnessing birds flying over a drive-in movie theater on August 31st, 1950 night. The same night that the other reports were made of Lubbock Lights, for the woman during the day. And he reported that the birds' undersides reflected in the newly installed lights. Another pair of witnesses, Joe Bryant and his wife, on August 25th, that's the day the professor saw it, observed groups of lights flying overhead. When a third group of lights passed overhead, they began to circle the Bryant's home and were identified by sight and sound as plovers. So someone else did hear it. J. Allen Hynek, an astronomer and one of the Project Blue Book's scientific consultants, later contacted one of the professors and did learn that the professors claimed the lights were plovers eventually. Who knows if that's because, they just wanted to stop being interrogated. However, J.C. Cross, the head of Texas Tech's biology department, and a game warden interviewed by Ruppelt, both claimed the sightings could not have been birds. Mead, one of those professors from earlier, who had also observed the lights, also disputed the plover explanation, stating, "These objects were too large for any bird. I've had enough experience hunting, and I don't know of any bird that could go this fast that we would not be able to hear. To have gone as fast as this, to be birds, they would have to have been exceedingly low to disappear quite so quickly.
Yeah, because also
Good
these
explanation for why it could be wrong.
because these lights, it sounds like they're high up. So if they're going
Yeah.
fast, they'll stay up there for a while. But if they're going very fast, they won't stay up there long. The
Yeah.
bird, if it were to disappear that fast, would have to just this absurd speed.
Yeah. All in all, as I mentioned before, the lights were never officially identified and to this day remain unsolved. Ruppelt reported that the only viable lead for what they could be was the lead about them being plover birds whose bellies were reflecting the light. He writes in his book, the old cowboy from La Mesa had described something identical to what the professors described, and they were plover. Secondly, whenever the professors left the vicinity of their homes to look for the lights, they didn't see them, yet their wives, who stayed at home, did see them. So if the quote lights were birds, they'd be flying low and couldn't be seen for more than a few hundred feet. He goes on to share that he noticed the vapor lights in the town, and after viewing a map of where the lights were, he did notice that the professor saw the Lubbock lights at a location near one of the newly installed vapor lights. So could this explain how they saw it? However, the only kink in this theory is that people living miles from a mercury vapor lighted boulevard had also reported the lights. So what could those be blamed on?
You know,
We're talking
maybe
people in the
maybe the
country,
birds
like,
took the lights with them.
yeah, I don't know. So, but after 70 years, the U.S. Air Force has never revised its plover theory about the Lubbock lights. So that remains the number one strong theory. The only other people outside Project Blue Book who have studied the complete case of the Lubbock Lights were a group who, due to their associations with the government, had complete access to the Project Blue Book files. I could not figure out what the group name was. These people were scientists, they were rocket experts, nuclear physicists, and intelligence experts, and they banded together to study the UFO reports because they were convinced that some of the UFOs that were being reported were interplanetary spaceships, and that the Lubbock series was one of these reports. The fact that the formations of lights were in different shapes didn't bother them. In fact, it actually convinced them all that their ideas of how a spaceship might operate were correct. So this group of scientists believed that the spaceships, or at least part of the spaceship that came relatively close to the Earth, would have to have a highly swept-back wing configuration, and they believed that for propulsion and control, the craft had a series of small jet orifices all around the edge. Various combinations of these small jets would be turned on to get to various flight altitudes. The lights that the various observers saw differed in arrangement because the craft was flying in different flight altitudes and like configuration. So you know how like going up and down, they would have different jets that would
Yeah.
bring you up and down. That's what their explanation is, which like honestly makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know about you.
No, that does.
I mean, that makes sense.
I never thought of it that way entirely.
I did not either.
Because with all the different light configurations and whatnot that were reported, that is a very good theory.
Yeah. Despite all this, though, Ruppelt goes on to write again in his book. Personally, I thought that the professor's lights might have been some kind of birds reflecting the light from the mercury vapor streetlights, but I was wrong. They weren't birds, they weren't refracted light, but they weren't spaceships. The lights that the professor saw, the backbone of the Lubbock Light series, have been positively identified as a very commonplace and easily explainable natural phenomenon. It is very unfortunate, though, that I can't divulge exactly the way the answer was found, because it's an interesting story of how a scientist set up a complete instrumentation to track down the lights and how he spent several months testing theory after theory until he finally hit upon the answer. However, telling the story would lead to his identity. In exchange for his story, I promised the man complete anonymity. But he fully convinced me that he had the answer, and after having heard hundreds of explanations of UFOs, I don't convince easily. With the most important phase of the Lubbock Lights, quote, solved, the sightings by the professors, the other phases become only good UFO reports.
So what's this explanation?
There is none. He can't tell you because it would tell you who the person is, and he promised that person anonymity.
I'm sorry, but that's such a crap explanation in
That
my
is
opinion.
such a cop-out. Such a cop-out for saying that this is that, like what you were saying with the Condor report? Condon report? Like, this is we solved it, so, like, it's not we know it's not a UFO. There's no such thing as aliens and stuff. It's but I can't tell you what it is
No.
because I told the person I would keep them anonymous.
This one's a bit more believable than Condon Report. He said somebody actually proved it. The Condon Report was like, well, because we can't prove it, therefore it can't be aliens because we can't prove it. And I'm like, that's not. I don't think that's how you connect it. I remember
I don't
when
know.
I read that in the book, I got like angry. I'm like, what am I reading here?
Yeah.
And that's how Hynek also mentioned it.
I don't know why he's saying that. Like, I understand why he thinks it's solved, like from his point of view, because he has this like mysterious thing that he got from some scientist person. But like, no conclusion was actually ever made. So like, it's stated by literally every source I was able to find, other than his, that it remains unsolved to this day because there's no explanation
And this is the
for
guy
what
who's
the
head of
objects
Blue
are.
Book, right?
Yeah, the supervisor.
Okay,
I know. I don't know. Yeah, that made me
I
mad.
don't. I'm not familiar enough with all the people in Blue Book because some of them were there with the inherent bias that it can't be, and therefore it will never be aliens on any explanation.
Yeah. I also wanted to report that's a plausible part of this. Where I had talked about the person from Albuquerque and then the person from Lubbock that both described them as being like without a plane without the body
Yeah,
or whatever. It was the same night, same exact description.
yeah.
Ruppelt was on a flight from Ohio to New York City, I think, and met that dude on a plane. And he described to Ruppelt what the lights were from his wife's point of view. So this man had no idea who Ruppelt was or anything, and happened to give the exact same description of this series of lights than as the person who witnessed it in Albuquerque. You're telling me that that's just normal? Come on, that's not coincidental, man.
So, is that all? Everything on this?
No,
Oh, there's more.
there's just a couple pop culture things. So.
Okay, I just this one. This one kind of angers me at that stuff.
Well,
It's annoying when that
we can
happens.
get to your thoughts in a second,
All
but
right.
in April of 1952, Life magazine published an article about the UFO phenomenon that featured the Lubbock Lights. Ruppelt devoted a chapter of his book in 1956 to the incident.
What's the book called?
It is the Unidentified Flying Objects. It's chapter 8, the Lubbock Lights unabridged.
All right, I'll have to see if I want to check that book out or not.
In November 1999, Dallas, Texas-based television station KDFW aired a news story about the Lubbock Lights, where reporter Richard Ray interviewed Carl Hart Jr. That's about taking the famous photos and being investigated by the U.S. Air Force. The Lubbock Lights were featured in the 2002 Sci-Fi Channel miniseries Taken, in which one alien poses as a human in the Lubbock area. In 2005, a film called Lubbock Lights was released about the music scene in Lubbock, which describes some theories about the lights by the musicians from the area. In 2006, Lubbock-based alternative country band Thrift Store Cowboys wrote and recorded a song titled The Lubbock Lights on their third album, Lay Low While Crawling or Creeping. Very, very strange name. And then lastly, the third episode of the 2019 History Channel television series Project Blue Book is titled The Lubbock Lights, and it's based on this incident. So there's some places where you can go find some information about this.
That's a lot more than whenever I said Dolce Bass episode.
Yeah.
Which I ended up finding a pop culture thing after the episode.
So, Frank, what are your thoughts?
You know what? I think this is something unexplained. Based on all the information you give me, I can't find a good explanation for it, and none of the sources you presented me gave me a good, solid reasoning. I don't think Ruppelt's reasoning is sound. You need to prove, at least not even if you don't do all of it, you need to give us something because right now you're giving us quite literally nothing.
Yeah.
And that I just don't like that. Not at all.
Yeah, I think that the explanation from the scientists who had access to the Project Blue Book stuff about like the jet propulsion makes the most sense to me. Whether that, goes with the Lubbock Lights or not, I think that would make a lot of sense for why the lights were seen the way that they were, because it was different lights being turned on. Or different jets being turned on.
Yeah, that is a good, even though that can't really be proven, I do like that one.
Yeah. So, was it a UFO?
I'm going to say yes.
All right. Current Texas Tech professor Thomas Macaron is quoted as saying, "Often in popular culture, the phrase UFO has been associated with aliens, but it really just stands for unidentified flying object. Many kinds of unidentified flying objects are things that are just normal natural phenomena. We don't understand what they are well enough based on the kinds of observations we have of them. So, yes, I would say that this is classified as a UFO, as it's unidentified, flying, and it's an object."
I agree with him, but I also think there's some intelligence behind this, so that's why I'm going to go with the potential aliens.
Yeah, I do. I definitely think it's a UFO. Aliens to be remain to be seen.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
any other thoughts
That was
before
a
I
really
conclude?
interesting one.
I know. It was like honestly, I'm like the worst with research.
Yeah, she
I always
researches
wait till
every.
like the
Oh
last second.
my, worse than me. I at least read books prior and then just go off my book sources.
But this was definitely way more. I thought there was way more information than I thought there was going to be. I thought it was a much smaller sighting. I didn't realize that it was a part of Project Blue Book, so that was very interesting to me. But yeah. So any any other thoughts?
No, that's about it for my thoughts.
All right. So I'm going to conclude us out here. And then we'll go in our usual spiel.
Big stretch.
So, this phenomenon, known as the Lubbock Lights, remains unsolved even after more than 70 years. It stands as one of the most famous UFO sightings in U.S. history and has since inspired hundreds of UFO sightings in West Texas. Ruppelt writes in his book, "How many of these sightings were due to the power of suggestion and how many were authentic?" I didn't know. I think that this is definitely an important piece to remember because, as he also writes, one point of interest was that very few claimed to have seen the lights before reading the professor's story in the paper. But this could go back to the old question, do people look up if they have no reason to do so?
That's a really good point. And also, I would have also thought, it's like mass hysteria or something. If it weren't for the fact that the guy got a picture of it,
Yeah.
that is where,
The pictures are so cool.
yeah. Oh, those are nice. Because, like, there's a lot of things where it's like, one person sees something, so everyone starts reporting. But if one person sees it and another reporting, and then this other reporting is a actual picture, then we're in a whole different
Yeah, and if
thing
you
here.
read Ruppelt's book, there was like a whole
Did you
investigation,
read it?
recreation. I didn't read the whole book, but I read his whole
Oh,
chapter
wait. How?
online.
Is it just free online?
Yeah, on sacredtext.com.
Oh, that's neat.
So there was a whole section about how him and some of the researchers at the photo laboratory recreated Hart's photos, and they couldn't get it to capture 3 photos in the span of time that Hart says that he took them. However, there was like at the end they ultimately concluded that it was likely because Hart was an experienced photographer who like knew how to work his specific camera that he could in quick succession take the 3 photos. But like I'm telling, it was very fascinating to like read all that. I just didn't feel like that was necessary to like go into super detail in here, but I definitely highly recommend checking that out because it definitely offered some interesting explanations for how Hart was able to get 2 photos of the second set of lights, 3 photos of the third, in such quick succession that when you put them side by side, you can see how the objects were moving.
That's cool.
But so yeah, I mean that's what I have on the Lubbock Lights. So maybe we'll go to Texas and see them.
I mean, when you go to Texas, I don't think we'll see him, but
Yeah,
yeah.
probably not.
All right. So is that it for today?
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to next week's episode. So we've gone what we did hauntings last week, aliens this week. Next week we're doing some cryptids. Wow.
Yep.
That's my little teaser for what it may be.
As if you haven't already teased this episode in other episodes.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's one I'm really looking forward to. I've started doing some of my research and writing the episode. This is going to be it's going to be a wordy one. But enough about mine. I really enjoyed yours today.
Thank you. I enjoyed researching it and sharing it with you.
All right. So, do you want me to give the final spiel? All right, guys, don't forget, follow us on Instagram and follow the podcast wherever you listen to, whether that be following, subscribing, give it a like, review, rate, listens, share it with other people. Every little bit helps. We've definitely seen some growth lately. We're up to 10 different countries I guess 10 or 9 countries because Spotify counts the U.S. Virgin Islands and the U.S. as 2 different places, but we've had listens from the U.S. Virgin Islands, so yeah, expanding, and Australia, woo!
From down under.
We're going global. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate you guys for coming here, and spread the word.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you ready for the sign off then, Sage?
Ready to go.
All right. Remember
To look for
the unknown,
the unsolved,
and the unseen.
Thanks for listening.
See you guys.
Look out for the lights.